The stage is set for the absolutely big clash. Vidit Gujarati enters the screen with his bottle of red juice and water. He's taking on Hikaru Nakamura, the world number 3 in the second round of the FIDE Candidates 2024. Vidit takes his chair, and we all know what he's going to do next. He's going to close his eyes and meditate. There you go, Black Lotus OP. That's the app he uses for meditating. You can see the Indian flag there, and right opposite it is the US flag, because world number 3 Hikaru Nakamura represents United States and is one of the finest players in the world of chess. And there you have him enter the screen. Hikaru maybe comes with a cup of coffee. He takes his chair, he adjusts all his pieces. He likes to do that. Writes down the score sheet first. In the background you see Nepo walking around. We have cameramen there capturing this important moment. Hikaru with the white pieces would love to get a win in to this candidates. He's one of the favorites to win this tournament. He himself says that he's under no pressure because playing chess is not his main profession. He's a streamer and a content creator. There you see him adjusting all his pieces. Vidit is not on the board. He's walking around, and there he's back. The games are about to begin. It's 2 hours for 40 moves and then 30 minutes increment, and off we go. Hikaru opens the game with 1 e4, and Vidit once again gets into the zone. It's interesting to see that Vidit not only sort of closes his eyes and meditates before the start of the round, but also before his first move. And now, what is the move that he's going to play? He can go for the aggressive Sicilian with c5. He can play maybe the Caro-Kann, maybe the French, but very likely that he'll go for the solid move e4, e5 there. Amazing that he's spending this time, roughly a minute, to get into the zone. So many youngsters are actually motivated by Vidit to close their eyes and meditate before the game. Let's see if that helps him today. What is Vidit's first move going to be? I'm sure he considered Hikaru opening the game with e4, and he responds back with e5, the super solid e5. And now Hikaru will most likely put his knight on f3, and we'll see a classical opening happening today. Is Hikaru thinking about King's Gambit? f4, no, not really. He brings his knight out to f3, attacks the pawn on e5. Well, Vidit has the Petrov in his repertoire, so he can go knight f6 here. He can also play, yes, knight c6. This is the normal way to play, knight to c6. And Hikaru can now put his bishop on c4, the Italian or the Ruy Lopez. He goes for bishop b5, presses the clock. Now Vidit is known for his super solid style of play, and he sticks to it and goes for knight f6, the Berlin. Will Hikaru allow the Berlin endgame? No, he plays the anti-Berlin with d3, and this leads to much more complex positions. And Vidit plays bishop to c5. Now there are 2 ways for white to play. One is to take and then continue, and another one is to not take and continue the game. Let's see what Hikaru chooses. He doesn't take and pushes his pawn to c3. Now Vidit can castle here with black. There are also some aggressive moves like d5. Yes, he castles. This is the normal way to play. And you must know that if bishop takes c6, b takes c6, knight takes pawn does not really work, because d5 and black is quite ahead in development. So Hikaru just castles it out, and now tells Vidit, what is your next move going to be? Well, the most logical move now is to play d6. Yes, you bolster your center, open up the bishop. Maybe you want to pin here with the bishop coming to g4, and so Hikaru quietly pushes his pawn to h3, stopping that pin. And next move, maybe he wants to push his pawn to d4. What is Vidit going to do? Ooh, he goes knight e7. Now this is a very dangerous move. Why? Because once you move your knight away from c6, which was defending the e5 pawn, white can push in the center with d4, and he does it. Hikaru pushes his pawn to d4, asking Vidit, what do you want to do? Because if you take, this is a great position for white with solid center. So Vidit now plays c6. This is a novelty. Look at Hikaru's expression. He didn't expect it, because the main move here is bishop b6. When if white takes the e5 pawn, then e4 hangs. But after c6, Hikaru brings his bishop back. Well, you could take here dc5, cb, cd, knight g6. This is what Vidit would have analyzed. But Hikaru says to Vidit, now I've protected my e4 pawn. Your bishop is hanging. If you take, I get the strong center. Vidit quietly goes back. Wow, has he sacrificed the pawn here, guys? Well, he can play a4, knight d2, but also Hikaru is tempted. This is a free pawn in the center. He chops off the pawn. I'm very curious to see what will happen next now. Vidit takes back the pawn. Now, and Hikaru quickly chops off the pawn on e5. Hikaru has used 41 minutes on the clock. Vidit has used only 5 minutes. He's still in his preparation. What is Vidit's idea here? Has he just lost a pawn? You can see Vidit quietly thinking about this move. Has he got something? Whoa! Sacrifices the bishop. What's the point here? Guys, gh3, queen b8. If the knight moves, queen g3, the pawn is pinned. And if you play bishop f4 here to protect, I have bishop c7 winning. Wow! What a move here by Vidit. Bishop takes h3. Hikaru seems to have calculated it. He's not interested to take the pawn. He goes knight to c4. This is a mistake. He should have taken the bishop. And in that line, he still is doing okay. Which was after bishop f4, bishop c7, bishop g3 takes and f4. But instead he goes knight c4, and now Vidit can save his bishop. Yes, bishop g4. He saves his bishop. He attacks the queen and asks Hikaru, what are you going to do next? The queen has to move because f3 is impossible. The pawn is pinned here. Hikaru thinking and playing queen c2 after 8 minutes of thought. Vidit still ahead on time. And now he has to choose between two options. One is to save his bishop with bishop c7. The other one is to go knight g6. Because knight g6 also very tempting. After take, he has 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces in the attack here. No, he goes bishop c7. He keeps his bishop. This is an important one, but has Vidit calculated it accurately? Because Hikaru can now push the pawn, attack the knight. If the knight moves, he will take on h7. That is the plan here. And Hikaru comes back, writes down his move. Vidit goes away. Hikaru, is he pushing the pawn? Yes, he does. He pushes the pawn. Well, in a way, Vidit now has to decide where to move the knight. Does he go to d5, which is the best move, or to d7, which is the second best move? He plays knight d7 and he attacks the pawn on e5. If you go like, let's say, a move like f4, that is not a great idea. So Hikaru just goes and chops off the pawn. He says, thank you, Vidit, for the free pawn. But now this bishop can get trapped with g6. The important move here for Hikaru to find is queen e4, which is not at all easy. Like queen e4, f5, and then bishop takes. Here bishop takes, queen h4 followed by bishop g5 is best. But Hikaru plays bishop d3. This is not a good idea. Now you can play b5, kick the knight, and then chop off the pawn on e5. In fact, you can even directly take on e5. Vidit, will he push the pawn? Yes, he does. He pushes the knight away. And he says to Hikaru, I'm okay that you won this pawn. Next move I'm taking here. And guys, what you will witness now after Vidit takes the pawn on e5 is black's pieces are tremendously active. So after knight takes e5, which he does, you will see that 1, 2, 3, 4 all active. While Hikaru makes a big blunder. Hikaru's all the pieces are still on their starting positions. Bishop e2 is a mistake. He should have taken here on g4. Bishop e2 now allows Vidit to play f5 and he finds it. What a classy move, because now if you take here, I'll take with my pawn. And next move, I have knight f3 check ideas with the knight moving, queen h4 coming in. Wow. He plays this move f4. And Hikaru does not like his position. Look at this move. f4 is opening up this entire diagonal, and Vidit sacrifices his knight in the center of the board. Bishop b6. You can see Hikaru did not consider that move. He's shaking his head. He's so unhappy. The point, of course, is that if you take here, knight d5 jumps in, queen g5 coming in, all sorts of moves are coming in. So Hikaru now plays his king up to f2. Vidit comes back from the room behind, which is actually the refreshment room for the players. Hikaru's idea is to free the rook to come to h1 and give a check. But that's just one check. Nothing more, nothing less. Vidit comes in with his knight into the center of the board. Wow, what a game this is turning out to be. We are just on move number 20 and Vidit has 36 minutes. Hikaru has just 12 minutes on the clock. Position is completely lost. Hikaru gives one check. Now the king has to move, of course, and Vidit is ready with his move, king g8. And Hikaru now chops off the knight. You will see that this knight on e3 is pinned. It's attacked twice, it's defended twice. So now can Vidit introduce another attacker there? Yes, he does. Queen to g5. 1, 2, 3. 3 pieces in the attack, and if you try to defend it with something like queen d3, there's knight f4 coming in, all sorts of threats. Rook a d8 can come in. So he plays king e1. Hikaru is ready to give up material, but now this is not going to end up good for him, because you can notice white is completely undeveloped. This game has turned into a complete nightmare for Hikaru. Bishop takes e3 played by Vidit. He's recovered his piece. And now what do? The idea is to now take the bishop on c1. The rooks are coming into the game as well. Rook d8. He takes on g4. And Vidit has many good options. He can take with queen. Just don't take with the pawn, because somehow queen h7. Even this is fine. But why do you want to allow such a check to come in? So bishop g4. Vidit quietly takes with the queen. Queen takes g4. If you take on e3, I'm going to take with the knight, attack your queen and the pawn. Well, Hikaru takes it. That's not going to help his cause. Oh, maybe he has an idea. He wants to, after knight takes e3, which Vidit's going to play queen b3. He plays queen e2. If you go queen b3 check, you can simply block with rook f7. So that's no problem. He goes queen e2. Now, you can take here on g2. That's possible. That also looks like a good move, but Hikaru is just lost here. Check by Vidit. If queen f2, there is queen takes e5, so he goes king d2, attacking the knight. But maybe it's time to introduce your last piece into the attack. Bring all the pieces into the play. Bring all your friends to the party. Rook d8 comes in. Now you have a knight, queen and the rook attacking. The king has to go back to c1. What is the finishing blow here? You don't need to hurry. You can be calm. You can see that the rook is controlling the key file, and queen comes in. There's no way for the king to escape. If you go knight d2, then there is knight c4 winning the game. So he goes b3, and now Vidit has many ways to win, but the cleanest is a check and go here with a fork. Knight f1 to g3 is game over. Vidit plays his knight to f1, a check, and knight g3 coming in next. What a game. Look at these pieces of Hikaru Nakamura. They are terrible. I think there's nothing left for him but to resign the game, and I believe that is what is going to happen. Vidit Gujarati has played an absolutely scintillating game. 29 moves, perfect preparation, and then perfect execution of the attack. The world number 3 extends his hand in resignation. Vidit has won. Let's hear how and what they have to say after the game as they analyze.